This is the Allison in Wonderland Mental Health Podcast with your host, Allison Frye.
This is the place that looks through the looking glass and falls down the rabbit hole while discussing mental health.
Join this journey that isn't just about putting mental health into a box that is only about anxiety, depression, or other common topics.
Allison in Wonderland is about everything that is in that box, as well as all of the things that don't quite fit into a box.
Here is your host, mental health advocate, Allison Frye.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Allison in Wonderland podcast. I will introduce you to our guest in just a minute, but I wanted to remind you that I am not a mental health professional. I'm not a doctor of any kind. I'm a mental health advocate. If you are in a state of crisis, call 911 or go to your nearest emergency room. Also, the Suicide Lifeline has recently changed to a 3-digit 988 code where you can text or call at any time. So hopefully you're not in crisis, but if you are, please use those resources. And now I want to introduce you to our special guest for today, who I've been really nerding out about having on the show, Hana. So Hana, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be connecting with you, and I love your pink hair. So we're already vibing. We've already set the tone for how amazing this is going to be today. I am also a mental health advocate. A brief overview of my story is that I went through a few traumas when I was younger that led into bullying, led into mental illness symptoms. I was diagnosed with bipolar, and I thought this is going to be my whole life. And I was 14 when I was diagnosed, put on so many different medications, in and out of the hospital, made an attempt on my life. And it wasn't until I was about 25 that I finally started to reframe my experience, reframe my lifestyle. I had really been and still am very goal-oriented. And when I was growing up and I was struggling with mental health and struggling with PTSD so much, I developed this idea that I needed to be famous by a certain age. I needed to be famous by 25 or I was going to die trying, because I knew it was so inevitable to me that my life would end in suicide. I have been a musician since I was always. I've always been a musician. I've been in theater since I was 8 years old. I knew I was going to be successful in music, but I also thought there was no way I'd be able to sustain that life. One of my beliefs at the time that I lived by was that because I was bipolar, there's no way you can't be bipolar and have fame like that. You get manic, you can't handle it, you fall apart. And you see all these famous people in the headlines that struggle and fall apart. And I thought, that's going to be me. But I really want all of this. I'm going to go for it anyways. And then I'll end my life. And it wasn't until I got to 25 that I finally got to break free from this belief of I'll end my life by 25, because I hit that age. And that was the moment for me of realizing that I could completely transform my life into anything that I want it to be. In the past few years since then, I have become such an advocate of mental health. I've spoken on stages. I have gone on 2 national tours for my music. I've done all these incredible external things and internal healing. And that's why I'm here today sharing with everyone, healing is possible. Everything is possible. You get the internal, you get the external, you can have it all. That's why I'm here.
I love it. I really do. The first time I encountered you, I guess recently at that conference that was in Nashville and I was virtual, I was just like, I have to know her. Absolutely. Just, you have such a great energy, and it really makes me so happy because, I mean, obviously, we wouldn't be mental health advocates if we had not lived through the hard things that led us to really look at mental health the way that we did. And so I do think it's, this transition that you've made from kind of like feeling like you are your diagnosis, where like you are that you're bipolar and that you are PTSD. I think that coming through that is really amazing. And because we're not our diagnosis. We're not, I mean, like I have PTSD. I am not PTSD. And you know what I mean? So it's like one of those things that um I think a lot of people really struggle with because we do see in the media, and I know this is going to air in January, but there's been a recent loss of a celebrity as a result of suicide, and the media is going crazy with it, and it it's really giving this really terrible message, I think, to people about, well, if you're bipolar or if you have a mental illness, this is what happens. And that's absolutely not the case. Like we can be so much stronger. And I think I am. I think I'm super strong. I think you're super strong. And I think that that's what people might look at us with your super cute blue hair and my pink and not realize that we're just like the strongest people in the room, but we are. And I think that it's really amazing. I think that even just the few weeks that I've been connected to you, I've felt a little bit more confident. And I love that. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the clarifying your dreams. And I did a couple of steps of this exercise this morning. So um, if you want to talk about the, if you want to talk about it, I would love to kind of then like give my experience with the few steps I've done.
Sure. Yeah. So I have a process that I call the Limitless Life method, which walks you through in a really simple and basic way, because that's an issue that I see a lot, is that it has to be broken down simply if this is a journey that you're just starting or you're laying the foundation for. So this is a really simple few steps to get you from not really having clarity on what you want and feel like you don't have a foundation to being able to take action on what you know you want and really building upon a foundation. So clarifying is basically the first step. A lot of us, especially in mental health recovery, and those of us who are mental health advocates, you can get to a point where you know you want to get out of it. You've been struggling. You know you are ready for something else. You know that there's another world, but how the F do you get there from where you are? It can feel impossible. And a lot of the time, because of all this stigma around mental health, it can be hard to let ourselves know what it is that we truly want. I think we can keep ourselves really blocked from that by just telling ourselves, well, it isn't possible. I'm not really going to give it the time of day. Clarifying what you want, as simple as that sounds, is the first step that you need to move forward. I love to start with just a daydreaming exercise. I'm a mindset coach. I walk through this Limitless Life method process in much more depth with my clients. And I give every single client this exercise before they come in for their first session. And 100% of the time, they struggle to come up with the answer. And the exercise is just to spend 15 to 30 minutes, set a timer, create a very safe, comfortable space. I love candles and flowers and crystals. So, whatever that looks like for you, to create a space where there's just no judgment, and give yourself that amount of time to write everything you can think of that you want. If you could be, do, or have anything in the world, what would that look like? There aren't limitations here. We're just putting it out on paper. And it's incredible how much people actually really struggle with, wait, I actually don't know how to take the limitations away. One of the experiences I see a lot is not knowing how to answer that question, because you say, but I don't know what I want. Like, what do I do if I just truly have no idea? And one of the exercises I recommend is starting with what you don't want to help yourself narrow it down. For me, I trying to think of a good example. Somehow suddenly I'm blanking because I've worked it into my brain to let myself want what I want and build toward it. Um, but if you don't know, I know that Well, let's see. So now I'm a mind coach, I'm a musician, I'm self-employed, and I love it. So one of the things I knew I didn't want was to work a 9 to 5. I do not want to work a 9 to 5. I don't want to work for someone else. Okay, so let's reframe that. I do want to be self-employed. If I don't want a 9 to 5, I do want a flexible schedule. And figuring out from there, it's starting with that reframe to just clarify before you take any other steps to let yourself feel whether that's possible. Just write it out. Just write it out. Just clarify what it is. And you go from there. And I'm curious as to what your experience has been in trying out these exercises that you mentioned. What have you experienced?
Yeah, so I think that the first step was a little easier for me than most people, probably because I just went through being laid off and deciding to jump into the podcast. So I had already kind of been like, what do I really want to do? Because I have this chance. But I ended up with like 4 pages. So I sat in this big chair under this purple blanket. I had a cat on me, um, and went through this morning. And the My Dream Life, I was surprised. Like I put a lot where it's being a mental health advocate full, like, because I would love to do this, but then I also, like, need a paycheck. And so I think that that's my biggest thing where I'm like, I couldn't do this full time because I have to. So it's like back to that. Well, if it's limitless, though, this is what it would be. I want to be a published author, which means that I need to actually sit down and write my book, finish it or something. I mean, like, there are a ton of things in here. They focused very much on 2 areas. They focused on like work, only not work as it is as I'm a digital marketer, work as my passion for mental health and being a public speaker, which in my mind, I'm like, who would want me to come be a public speaker for them? What do I have to say? So I was able to get the things down, but I also heard the voice in my head that was like, but but you can't do that because of this. But I kept on going. I was like, okay, I can do this. One of my things, was, like, deal with my PTSD and get off my sleep meds. So, I have PTSD that only manifests itself in my sleep with night terrors. Take a lot of medicine to sleep, and I ha I've worked on the trauma therapy, but it's like I'm scared. I am scared to deal with this, like, repressed childhood trauma that my brain built walls around for a reason. And so I just numb myself at bedtime. So, like, I put it on there, like, I would love, like, I feel like, what is the Allison like that's past that? So that was one of my, don't be scared of it. I can just write it down. And then I wrote some stuff about my relationship, because I've been married for 21 years and kind of we're empty nesters now and kind of like what that looks like. I've got just pages. On the last page, there's the what I want kind of exercise. In very big letters, it says be me. And then under it, it says not someone's wife, someone's mom, someone's employee, because those are the things I've been my whole life. It doesn't mean I want to stop being those things, but I want my limitless life is letting Allison be Allison. So I wrote all of that down and I never do videos and post them, but I sat there with no makeup on and posted like a happy morning, happy Monday video to everyone about how they're all rock stars because this made me super energized this morning. So if you saw it on Instagram, it was because that video was specifically because writing this stuff out made me very energized. And I was just like, you're rock stars. I've been nerding out over having all of these people on the podcast and getting to talk to you all. But I was like, you know what? I'm special and y'all are getting to talk to me too.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. Wow, that's really incredible. Thank you for sharing all of that. That's so beautiful and vulnerable and such a big part of your story. One thing I did want to comment on, you had said at one point that you said to yourself, don't be scared. And something that I really try to impress upon people is do be scared. It's not don't be scared. It's so natural and normal and it's going to happen that you're going to write these things down and you're going to be like, "Oh my god, like that imposter syndrome's gonna come up and you're gonna be like, nope, there's no way. And I think there's a difference between a judgment-free zone and a fear-free zone. And you can allow yourself to be afraid of it and experience fear around it without telling yourself it's not possible. I've found that when we try to shut down fear, it doesn't work, because there's a part of us that, of course, a part of us is saying, no, this is unfamiliar to me. I don't know if I can do this. It's terrifying. And to give that permission to be there and to continue moving forward is so powerful and allows every part of you to be present while you're building all of this.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was really exciting. I had I kept meaning to do it, and then I was like, okay, right. And then I hopped on and did it this morning, and I was actually really glad that I did it this morning, even though I didn't go through the whole program, because then it was so fresh in my mind right before we talked. And then I made it through the current beliefs um, section, and I didn't write as much, but with work and advocacy. So it was like, I'm not confident that I'm really qualified to represent myself as a mental health advocate. Like, what makes me think that, I am, which is funny because we're here talking about it. And it's like I can't not work and then focus on mental health, because I need a job, but I need a paycheck and things like that. I'm not an expert, so why would anyone want? Like, why would anybody like, hey, come do our speaking engagements? I just like talking about mental health. So I'm like, it'd be cool if I could go do that. um, and then if I fail, have I missed the chance? Like, have I halted my marketing career for a dream that wasn't really going to happen? So these were like my current belief and hangups. And then this is the one that's the kicker. I'm writing this memoir that I keep putting off. And it says being honest is going to ruin some of my relationships. And
Wow.
that's the big one,
Oh,
because
yeah.
my memoir is going to be honest, and it's going to be honest about the people that hurt me, and then they're gonna be gone from my life after that. And so, but I feel like I'm doing a disservice to myself and to the nature of what the book is meant for if I'm not honest. So that's where that book hang up is every time I start something, I kind of am like, uh but that's as far as I made it
That
in the
makes so much
exercise.
sense. Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh, that's so huge. I'm just sitting in that for a minute. That's so big. That's incredible self-awareness to to know that that's ultimately what's keeping you from going for that. These things, these beliefs that you've mentioned, do they feel like something? Can you see a version of yourself who no longer believes these things?
I feel like I can. I feel like that was definitely gonna be the harder, like, next step of the exercise, which I was like, "Okay, I think I need to ruminate on the fact that these are my dreams and these are my hangups before I go to the next step." And so I can see that person. It's the journey that is, I think, that's the difficult part. So I think that's why I made it as far as I did. I was like, so I
Yeah.
my dreams and kind of what my hangups are, and that's, um, I at least know what my limitless life looks like and what I want to have in it. Now it's about figuring out how to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. The nice thing about the Limitless Life Method course, something that I really liked about it and designed it for, is that it's very self-paced. Like, I probably wouldn't recommend that someone sit down and just do it all in one day, even though it's shorter videos, because it's so much inner work. So I think it's probably good that you came to a stopping point that felt
Yeah.
good for you for where you are now. But it's the journey of becoming who you are and stepping into who you are is easily the hardest part. The next part of the process is reframing those beliefs that you currently have into the beliefs of the version of you that has all of those things. So when you picture the you that has written the book, that is really diving into the podcast in a whole new way, all of these things that you want, that version of you has to believe different things than the version of you that you are now. beliefs. So that's really ultimately where the journey is not just in reframing those beliefs, asking, what does that version of me believe? But stepping into that, it's a whole lot of work. It really is. I
Wow.
commend you for being on the process of doing it, because you are. I can feel that you're hungry for it and that you are going for it. You are on the path.
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, I'm definitely gonna link it on the website so everybody can go see it. But it's nice too because it seems like an achievable process to go through. Where a lot of times when you look at these self improvement type processes, it's like you're going to spend the next 12 hours going through this thing, but they are short videos, but with very meaningful outcomes. And so I think it's really great the format that you've done it in. We've got this very short attention span these days. And so it's really built to where people can do it without feeling like, okay, well now I have to take all of this time away from my day or from my kids or from my job to try to work on me because I don't have time to work on me. Really, it's like, hey, I'm going to sit down for 30 minutes and work on me. And then the next day I'm going to work on me for 30 minutes. And so the format of it I just think is incredible. It didn't feel like I was biting off more than I could chew with everything else, and I really love that.
Thank you. Good. That's exactly what I want it to be. So I love hearing that feedback, because this is like I said, it just like, especially from a mental health um recovery perspective, just it feels so hard. I mean, I'm sure you can remember a point where you weren't even where you are now. Like, it's just like a really big struggle day to day. And to look at a process like this, or to look at these self-help courses and journeys and, all of these things that we see marketed to us all the time, when you're in that space of just not knowing how to keep yourself moving forward and to get yourself out of where you are, it's so important for it to be simple. So important for it to be simple. Having been hospitalized, when I was 14, I took an intensive 4-week program slash training on dialectical behavioral therapy. And that has led to a lot of the work that I do now. DBT is all about reframing the mindset, having coping tools to move through what you're experiencing. I remember, though, at the time, that was so much. I was a 14-year-old kid, and the best way for me to get treatment was a 4-week intensive program that took me out of school and just pushed me into an environment that I really wasn't ready for. I'm grateful for the tools I have now. And is there not maybe another way to ease into the process? And of course, it depends on your circumstances. It depends on where you're at. When I was 14, I also would not have benefited from quick video Limitless Life course either. And I feel like there need to be more simple offerings that create an easier process to sit with.
Well, and I think that kind of speaks to the mental health industry as a whole, where, you know, it needs to come and meet people where they're at and not necessarily us meet them where they're at. I recently went through an experience where it's great that everyone's gone to telehealth, but I was trying to help find a local therapist for someone, and no one's in the office anymore. And this person that was in crisis wanted to go sit in an office and talk to the person. They didn't want it to be through telehealth. They wanted that connection, and they were in like extreme crisis. And it took forever for me to find someone that would like meet in the office and that would get them in right away, because everyone's booked out 2 months in advance if they're in an office. And I think that it was really eye-opening to me that mental health needs to meet people where they're at instead of the other way around. It was very eye-opening because I've always been like, wow, it's so great that telehealth is a thing now. When I moved from Georgia to Kentucky just recently, my psychiatrist that I've had for the last 6 years got licensed in Kentucky. She's the first person I have felt comfortable trying to dig into the PTSD and the childhood trauma with, and I just could not start over. with someone different. And so I've been really grateful that due to COVID, the insurance will pay for telehealth sessions. But then I saw the flip side of it when I just could not find a local therapist for the person I was trying to help. There needs to be a variety of ways because we're all going to be receptive to different things.
Yeah.
So you're a musician. I'm so jealous. I was talking to someone earlier and told them that I literally was fired from my voice teacher like a year and a half ago. I was trying to prep for my empty nest. And since I'd been a theater mom for years and my son was graduating from theater, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to try to do theater. So I went and took voice lessons and stuff. And she basically said I was hopeless. It was so funny.
Oh my God. That's terrible.
It's really bad. I was like, well, I can still sing in the car and do straight plays. I was a theater nerd in high school. It was the first time I ever felt like I had a group of my own peers. But even then, I couldn't be on stage. I had just crippling stage fright. I was very self-conscious. I wasn't really raised to have a lot of value in myself, outside of just being someone that needed to try to marry rich. My sister and I joke sometimes about how did we end up having corporate jobs and being independent and these things when we were told that we needed to just grow up and marry a doctor. So it's really strange, but I loved being in theater, and I mean, would love to be a musician, but I can't carry a tune. So I think it's really amazing though that you're able to follow this dream of being a musician, but also do it in a format that's helping other people. And that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that is through This Is My Brave doing concerts, or is that through on
Um,
something else?
it's through myself primarily. So this is my Brave. Let's absolutely give them a shout out. They are an incredible mental health organization that focuses on releasing the stigma around mental health and addiction and supporting people in their recovery through storytelling. Incredible platform, incredible organization that I've been working with for years. The conference where you saw me perform was on their behalf.
Oh.
I generally do my own thing and also work with them. So this particular event, like, I mean, truly anyone who's listening, if mental health or recovery or both are on your mind, check out This Is My Brave. If you have a story that you feel ready to share, participating in their showcases will change your life. I, as a musician, started incorporating my mental health journey probably in 2015 or 2016 when I really started um not just performing as an original artist but really sharing my story. So for me it's always been kind of, I can't even call it conventional. I was going to say conventional path of performing at venues and building the music career. It hasn't been that because I've also shared my mental health story, but the format for me has, as I've been building, my platform started as kind of your standard going to a concert, someone performs a 45-minute set. That's the type of thing that I generally do and have expanded from there to perform at conferences, to perform as my Brave, to submit songs to be in film. So there have been a lot of branches now, but I've been on stage forever, and I feel like performing in and of itself, the best performers are the ones who are transparently themselves. And I think once I started being able to do that, the combination of mental health and music for me was just very natural.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because anybody that has certain music that they listen to because they're sad, that's because music is tied to our mental health, or certain songs that make them happy. And I think that it's hard, like people that aren't like so ingrained in the mental health industry or as an advocate maybe doesn't realize it or see it. But I mean, music affects our mental health. I mean, it does. And so it makes sense because people are pouring their soul into their lyrics and then we're, interpreting them the way we do. And so a song that you write may mean one thing to you and something completely different to me when I hear it. It's amazing that you're able to have that passion for music, but also be like doing something really great with it at the same time. And I'm guessing that like part of your journey of the limitless life was, not putting up those roadblocks for yourself and being like, I can't do this.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I'd mentioned at the beginning that the belief around fame was always correlated to my music career. It was always, I want to be a pop star. I want to be on the red carpet. I want all of these incredible things. And I just tied that to my life and survival, which just made it impossible to get to. But I would say when I started this process of building my limitless life, and I didn't know that it was that yet. I had thought getting out of the hospital when I was 25, which is what happened for me. I don't know that I mentioned that earlier, but when I was turning 25 and I was hitting that rock bottom and realizing I I don't think I am ever going to be famous. I'm never going to be a successful musician. Might as well take my life. I end up in the hospital, and it was in getting out of the hospital and turning 25 that my transformation really started for me. And I thought that when I got out of the hospital and I started brainstorming and daydreaming and thinking about this new life, I wasn't even sure if music would be on the table for me. I got a day job for the first time in 5 years at that point. I'd been self employed, I'd been gigging at bars for years to make my money. And I thought, I just have to take a break from this. I don't know if I can do this anymore. And I found that pulling myself away from it, I I couldn't have a life without it. I learned that trying to take a break from it. It's like, okay, no, this is my dream. Now that I've had some space, let me go back into this healthily. Let me build on it. And now I've toured the country and I've had my music licensed in film and I've just done all of these incredible things that COVID obviously really, really cut into. So it's still like figuring out I'm still figuring out, I think, what it looks like for me now to get back to where I dream of being, but ultimately that's always going to be a part of my limitless life. And I am very confident that I will only grow from here as a musician.
That's great. I mean, it really is. It's so great. It's really inspirational too. Like it's terrible that you hit the rock bottom and that you reached a point where you had an attempt on your life, but what you've what you've done from there shows so many people that that's not the only life that you have to have. You're not this one incident. You're not you're like I said before, you're not your diagnosis. You look at how much life you've had and how much more life you have to give, and it's really inspirational because I come at it from the other side where I lost people as a result of suicide, which started my mental health journey. And I think that it really helps to see people that are able to, you know, kind of pull themselves out of it. And I know it's not it's a lot more complex than saying pull yourself out of it. Like that's probably a terrible way of putting it, but it makes me feel like when I try to be a suicide prevention advocate, that it's actually an achievable thing. We can't prevent suicide. We can definitely change the narrative of mental illness, the narrative of suicide. And I think that it really is just it's helpful for me just personally to see people that have come through it on the other side because then I know that, you know, I'm not gonna say that my losses happened for a reason, but I do see the butterfly effect of my life and how I ended up the person that I am now, and those losses were definitely part of it. Um, of course, I wish those people were here, but it's nice to know that there is a way to prevent suicide, and there is a way for people to heal, and that I can work and help do that with people, and people like you are out there helping that as well.
Something I do think is really important to acknowledge from my experience is my level of privilege. That's something I'm trying to figure out as I continue to help, and I know how possible it is to come from a suicidal place, years of suicidal, to living this dream life that I want to live. Part of why I just have to give back, it's just ingrained in me, is because I grew up so beautifully privileged. I was given access to 4-week dialectical behavioral therapy programs that most people wouldn't have been able to receive. I was able to see holistic medicine doctors and work with really incredible therapists. And if I hadn't had that incredible support from my family that they were in a position to provide for me as I was growing up, I would not have made it. As much as it took my internal work and it was in me to create the miracle that I am today, that support has to be provided. It's like what you were saying, like the mental health industry has to meet us where we're at. So I do just think it's really important to acknowledge for anyone listening who's like, well, it's not, how do I just do that? How do I just
Yeah.
get there? I totally get that it's not that simple, and so that's one of my next steps is how do we provide those same resources to people so they can do things like build their limitless lives and they can get to that foundation and not have it take as long as it took me, even with all the support that I had and
Yeah.
continue to have. So just want to
And
give a voice to that.
yeah, that's great. I mean, I think it is important because I think a lot of people are going to be like, I can't afford that. I know growing up, I grew up very poor. I was a free lunch kid, and that was the meal I knew we were gonna have was the free lunch. And during the summer, there was no telling. But I definitely live kind of a charmed life now, where my husband does really well, and so yes, I got laid off, and I'm sitting here spending money on podcasts, streaming, and social media stuff and pictures because I do have that privilege that you're talking about. I didn't grow up in it, but now I do have a little bit more stability where I'm not just trying to grasp for a little bit of food and getting there. And I think that mental health really needs to not just meet us where we're at physically or emotionally, but this financial issue is really rough. And sometimes it's not even that. We can find programs for people, but finding those programs where they can get them without having insurance and without having the money or without having the time is just one piece. Letting the people know what programs they need is a huge thing. A year after my older brother took his own life, n- and I have so many siblings, I can say this without anyone knowing who it is. One of my siblings had a mental breakdown and we had him committed and he didn't have health insurance. And they ended up writing it all off because we just took him to the hospital. And they sat there. And one of the main things that I see as a valuable tool that they did for him was they helped him find the places in Birmingham where we were at the time that had the free clinic for his mental health, that had the therapy, that would give him the medication that he needed. And there was no way for us to have known those things if he had not had the breakdown that led him to be hospitalized. And I've always just been like, well, how do you find those things? How do you know? How do you get that information? Most people don't even know that that's what they're looking for. So I'm right there with you. Whenever you figure out like how this next step is, I am right there with you. We'll do it together because I agree. It's not just about whether it's telehealth or not. There's a financial aspect. There's a what do I do with my kids? How do I take off work? There's so many things that go into it where you grew up with privilege. I kind of live with it now. So things are not the same for us. I think the circumstances are different. That doesn't mean we don't struggle the same. It just means we've had a little bit more access
Yeah.
maybe to help.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. The journey is the same. The internal journey doesn't matter what your circumstances are. The internal journey from really struggling with your mental health and or PTSD or addiction, getting through that internally is the same no
Yeah.
matter what. I totally agree. sharing the resources. You're right. I'm like, do I know of anywhere? I live in Nashville, and I'm thinking, do I know of anywhere like that here? Has to exist. There have to be communities, there have to be clinics. I don't know of a single one, and I'm in the mental health community.
I'm in Kentucky now, I was in Birmingham then, but yeah, I mean, like, I have no idea. When my brother passed away in 2007, I found the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention online. I felt like the funeral home or somebody should have had information to give us about coping with the loss of someone by suicide. And that's still not a thing. People still have to go look for the information. People still feel isolated in their grief. They feel stigma. I mean, I didn't tell people at first that my brother had died as a result of suicide. I didn't know how to communicate it without feeling shame from the stigma. It took some time, but I'm one that has to go out and research things because I wanna know what I don't know, and that's how I found the resources online, but there needs to be something. I mean, it's terrible that there needs to be, but there needs to be a pamphlet in every funeral home so people know how to get help, and there needs to be information for everyone on how to go get help for their mental health, even if they don't have the money. Well, there's a future goal. I don't super achievable.
Yes. Everything's possible.
Everything's
We'll make it
possible.
happen.
I'll start building a website right now.
If
Well, Hannah, it's been really great having you on here. I know that I told you I was really bad. I didn't have my episode notes up and everything. Did I miss anything while we were talking? Anything else you want to share?
Ooh, what a great question. I could talk for hours and days. I love to talk.
It'll be the 4-hour
Mm.
podcast. Which episode was Hannah on? Oh, it's the one that's 4 hours.
The one, yes, the longest one, and that is me. Um, I this is a message that's said all the time. I just feel the need to say it all the time, which is the reminder that you are enough. That I think there will be people listening to this that have had a lot of doubts today and yesterday and for the past several months, and it can it can be really easy, especially with TikTok and Instagram and all this social media, to feel like people don't understand you. They don't hear you. They don't see you. Is anybody even going through what I'm going through? Am I even good enough? The answer is yes. You are seen and you're heard. And I hope that we get to the point where there's less and less stigma around not just mental health, but just sharing our feelings,
Yeah.
sharing who we are, sharing our stories. I I didn't go into it in more specific detail, and I'm always happy to, but then we would be here for 4 hours. But I will say, I was sexually abused multiple times. I was sexually abused. I was bullied. I was raped. I got involved with a drug addict who was in a gang. It was a lot of violence, a lot of drugs, a lot of just terrible. I mean, it's been a series of not has been, it was a series of really terrible abuses for a while. And when I first started sharing, I found that people, especially at the time, it's like 10 years ago when I started a blog, and people really weren't talking about this at the time. And people would come to me and they would say, "Oh my God, I didn't think anybody had been through this. I didn't think anybody knew." And that's why I'm just such an open book, because I have been through it and I know what it's like to go through it. And you, whoever is listening, like, you're just so beautiful, and nobody is like you. And that's a really, really beautiful thing. So
It really
that's my
is.
story.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the sexual abuse chapters are the reason I'll alienate the people in the family. That's
Yeah.
that's the key. Um, so you've reached that point where you can be really open, and me, I'm like, should I worry that they're gonna get hurt when I call people out? But at the same time, like, I need to own my own story. I feel like people didn't protect me when I was young. And owning that and talking about it is kind of the way I protect myself as an adult. So I'm getting there. But you're right. For anyone that's listening, it's really terrible. And it's terrible that, Hana and I have like randomly met and we both have gone through sexual abuse, which just tells you how like common it is and how many people have been through it and aren't talking about it. So you're not alone. You're not alone in it. And you're beautiful and it's not your fault. Whatever people are doing to you, it's not your fault or have done to you, and it doesn't define you. And I think that's really important. And I think that we probably need to have a whole other episode about it because
Yeah, that is its own thing.
because it
It
is,
is. It is.
yes,
And
absolutely.
I will say also that that it is okay not to share your experience in that you you kind of need permission from all of your inner parts in order to share something like that. So like with your book, there may just be parts of you right now who are not there. That it's not
Right.
it may be less I would say like thinking less about as much as it's very important, thinking less about what will this do to my relationships with them? What impact will this have on them? And tuning in and saying, what impact would this have on me if I shared this right now? What would happen to the parts of me that have experienced this abuse and can still get triggered by PTSD? And I would say that for anyone listening as well, if you've had any sort of trauma or mental health experience, like really think about how tuning into the different parts of you and experiencing what you're feeling and how you're reacting. Every single part of us is here to protect us. Every single part of us loves us, even if we don't always understand why and how. We are a big blob of parts, is what we are. A big, beautiful blob of parts. And especially those who have been through trauma and or mental health struggles. There are so many more parts of us that want to protect us from our mental health experiences or our traumas. And hopefully that all made sense. In conclusion, big blob of parts. We're all
Big
beautiful, big blobs of
A
parts.
absolutely. And you're right, not being super open about the experience is not a failure on your part. I own my mental health story and how much I share it, and other people own theirs and whether they share it or not. You don't have to have a podcast and air out all your stuff to be doing it the right way. I'm doing the right way for me to heal by trying to
Mhm.
talk about it. So, right, everybody tell their blob of parts and um gonna be the name of the episode. Well,
I love it.
well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I feel like we like started out super light and then we got kind of dark
And
and
then
we're
got
gonna
yeah.
yeah. And we probably have a whole other episode in us that we can just dedicate to talking about that. Because I think it
Yeah.
might, especially once there are some listeners out there, I feel like it will be very helpful to kind of just share and to the extent that either of us are comfortable, because it's definitely a part of my journey that affects me every day. Something that happened in third grade. I'm 40 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's definitely one of those things, but I love you so much. I filled out a survey the other day and it was like, who inspires you? And I was like, it changes. This week it's Hana Kahn. And I like went and talked all about you
Oh,
in my little questionnaire for people.
you.
Because I was just like because like in that moment I was like, oh my gosh, you're so inspirational. You're beautiful. Your story's beautiful. You've obviously overcome a lot and you're still doing it and you're giving back and helping other people, and it just I just think that that's so amazing. Thank you so much for joining the show. You'll definitely have to
Thank
come
you.
back.
I'm gonna give a quick shout out to the course. So the course is called Limitless Life Method, and that and my coaching, and I'm doing free calls right now. Actually, maybe will be at the time that this is released, but head to my website, wearegoldenstars.com, and you'll find information on all of that. And then social media handles for me are at wearegoldenstars on Instagram and TikTok. And my music is on all the streaming platforms. It's just under my name, Hana Kahn, Spotify, Apple Music, everything like that. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. I'm so glad you'll have to come back.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review.
Also, remember, this show does not contain medical advice that you should follow without speaking to your doctor. If you or someone you know is in crisis, call 911 or go to the nearest emergency room. You can call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988.